Guys, and I'm super excited today because we're going to be talking about PTR 9.1. Finally, we get to see something that's happening in 9.1 in terms of the bosses, in terms of new raid, in terms of 2 raid bosses, and one of them, the Tarragrue, is insanely good, bad. He has anima powers from Torghast incorporated into the actual boss. And we're going to talk about why this is great and bad because of how the reset works. So generally speaking, today on PTR, I got to test out 2 bosses. I mainly tested out Resto Druid, but I also had a look on Resto Shaman. We're going to talk about Resto Shaman. We're going to talk about some of the conduits, the new Soulbinds that are available. We're going to talk about some of the legendaries, although I did not test the new legendaries, keep in mind. We'll talk about my PTR testing, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like or comment below if you want to see more of these. If you like this, I possibly will make a video for every single PTR testing where I'm going to try and test other healers, other specs, other different combinations. So leave a comment if you enjoyed. So let's go and get started with the Resto Druid and the Guardian of the first one. Now, Guardian of the first one wasn't supposed to be the first boss that was going to test it, but the Tarragrue was completely broken because the anima powers were not working. So we got to check out this bad boy. In terms of the raid boss mechanics, I'm just going to go through very basics. You have these 3 orbs, and initially we weren't sure what was going to happen, but you kind of get the boss to a certain amount in terms of energy. You bring the boss close to one of these pillars. Again, I mentioned them as orbs, but they're more of a pillars. There's going to be an area effect activated where everyone stands, and there's going to be reduced damage. And after that's over, you kind of have to run away at least 15 yards away. If you don't run 15 yards, you're possibly going to die. But if you run 15 yards, there's going to be AoE damage happening. It's going to be reduced to you, and that's it. In terms of other things that overcomplicate this fight, is that there's going to be 3 people, at least based on the raid size. For us, it was 3 people that would get these kind of like circles around them. They need to run away. That's fine. You're also going to get this line that you need to avoid it. And there's going to be a nasty overlap when you're actually standing in these pillars where you're trying to get this damage reduction. You're going to get these 3 orbs. People need to go to the edges of the circle that gives you damage reduction. And then there's going to be a line that you need to dodge. And this nasty overlap, and then after that you need to run away 15 yards away again in order to survive. And this was basically the whole fight. Besides that, you kind of can see these like floaty circles that are going around. Don't stand in those because it gives you silence. And they give you a ton of damage. And generally speaking, there's going to be one, but sometimes there's going to be a second one appearing. And the AoE damage that happens is insane. In terms of the testing, I felt this is going to be a fight where your AoE or healers are going to flex their HPS muscles because it felt really, really rough in terms of the healing. There were times where actually we tried with like 5 healers just to overheal it and see the fight till the end. I'm very certain that it's possible to kill it, but it requires a lot of coordination, especially for a boss that's heroic. You have to keep in mind that our item level was scaled up because you get these buffs on the PTR and things like that. So this was supposed to be an appropriate item level approaching this boss, and it felt really hard in terms of healing. I felt any bosses that have this area of effect or like based on stacking, things like Resto Shaman are going to be really strong here. I feel Spirit Link is going to be a game changer here because once you kind of destroy a pillar, you need to run away 15 yards. And some people might still have like, you know, they might not be topped up and they need to be like, you know, you're gonna die. And Spirit Link is gonna save those moments. I feel, again, the fact that Resto Shaman has Spirit Link, the fact that they have Healing Rain, Earth and Wall Totem, possibly maybe APT and such a Protection Totem if someone's like really dangerous and there's going to be, you know you're gonna lose a person. Felt really nice. I also felt things like Ashen Hollow from Holy Paladin, not only because of the damage portion, but also the healing portion felt really strong during these really, really tough healing periods where you have these 2 orbs floating around. Resto Druid, the rot type of damage pattern fits Resto Druid really well. And I honestly feel every healer is gonna flex their HPS muscles. But because it is a stack type of fight, you can stack and you have to stack for certain amounts. It's going to fit certain healers better than others. And now we can go and check out some of my talents and basically soulbind options that I was testing during this fight. So besides some of the new things that are happening in 9.1 in terms of dungeons and raids, you're gonna get things like new soulbind options, which is really cool because every kind of soulbind is gonna have the end option, and that's going to be the big one. That's gonna determine if it's going to be great. Some of these utility ones here are also really strong. Now keep in mind, disclaimer, I'm basically doing field crafting here. I'm basically, again, choosing certain options, testing them. It does not mean because I went this soulbind tree, it's going to be the best. There's going to be possibly 2 or 3 more months before Blizzard is going to rebalance a lot of things. I was basically just testing them out and seeing how much healing it's going to do. and I'm going to do that in the future, like I mentioned at the start of the video. So I was running Naya, I was running a third potency conjure. That's the biggest thing that happens. You're going to have 3 potency conjures. Now, certain healers are not going to benefit from 3 potency conjures as much as others. Because, let's say, in this example, Resto Shaman 3 potency conjures, I feel, are really nice when you compare it to 3 potency conjures for Resto Druid. And you can use sites like Questionable Epic to compare, and we can go and check it out really quickly. For example, this is Night Fake Covenant for my Druid, and it's using, again, this is 9.05 data, and it's going to be changed in 9.1. But there is a general consensus on some of the conduits, because you can see here, Unstoppable Growth is insanely strong. It's one of the potency conjures you're always going to use. Conflicts of Elements, again, extremely, not extremely, but pretty good option, especially if you want to do damage or healing in things like dungeons. And then after that, you don't really have, like, again, Flash of Clarity seems to be the next best option in terms of clear casting, regrowth, heal for an additional 20%. But if you're a type of person that always miss out on clear casting, and you don't have a good uptime on Life Bloom, you don't use your regrowth during clear casting, you're gonna miss out on a lot of healing here. And when you compare the 3 potency conjures that you get from Resto Druid to Resto Shaman, there is a big difference. Like, this is my Resto Shaman's Necrolord build, and you have things like Swirling Currents, absolutely juicer, must have potency conjure no matter what. Tumbling Waves if you're Necrolord, this kind of resets gives you an option of getting like 70-80k cloud bursts if you get a good amount of resets. And then after that you have Heavy Rainfall. Heavy Rainfall on fights like Council are insanely good, and Heavy Rainfall is also used in Mythic Plus to heal Prideful. And if you don't feel Heavy Rainfall is going to be all that great, I do feel Embrace of Earth can be decent in dungeon environments where you need single target healing. So I genuinely feel this, maybe it's just field crafting right now, but I feel like certain classes are definitely going to benefit more from 3 potency conjures than others. So I was running Naya at this point because I was running Growth Invigoration, I like the Mastery benefit from it, and I chose to run, again, these are some of the utility options. When you fall below 50% health, you regain 20% health over 10 seconds and receive 5% additional healing from other spells and abilities. This was okay. I mean, this was, in terms of survivability and utilities, is pretty nice. And I was running Bonded Hearts, gaining a stack of Redirected Anima, and you gain a stack from Redirected Anima automatically by using Convoke. So during Convoke, this is going to be really nice. Growth Invigoration heals up to 5 nearby allies for 2% of their health. In any of the affected allies, if any of the affected allies are other covenants, Redirected Anima Mastery and maximum health effects are increased by 50% for 5 seconds. So the Mastery effect is hard to gauge based on healing logs, and that's why I feel I have to say this message that it is fieldcraft. But generally speaking, you can see in my logs or combat logs straight away, if I'm going to use Convoke, there's going to be Bonded Hearts healing at the very start. And again, this is not a good representation because if there's more members, there's going to be more procs. But generally speaking, my Bonded Hearts, and this is my logs that we actually did from the fight. So this is the current segment. We can see Bonded Hearts healing for 5%, which was insane, but this was only a 2.5 minute fight. Keep in mind, this is only like a portion of the fight. This is another 3-minute fight. You can see Bonded Hearts going for around 3%. We can go to a 2-minute fight. It was doing around, again, a lot less, about 1.5. Again, I was running Scenario Ward Legendary, where I was extending Scenario Ward. I was really trying out Verdant Infusion. So there's a lot of different things that I was trying out. I was really kind of going for different builds. So generally speaking, you can see the amount of healing that our tries or our healers were doing during those tries. We're looking at 8, 9, 10, 11k healing or HPS, which is kind of insane for a heroic raid boss where our gear is scaled up. So keep that in mind. It was really interesting. So overall, I found the boss where you need this kind of healing kind of cool, and maybe bringing additional healers kind of cool. Do I feel this is going to be nerfed before the patch, or before the patch is going to be released? I think so. I think Blizzard is not going to have this kind of healing requirements in heroic boss. Or maybe they're going to surprise me. We have to see. So now let's go and have a look at Tarragrue and Resto Shaman. And this was a bit memey because we didn't have a full group. We were basically playing with like 5 or 6 players. But I have to talk about the basic concept of the boss and some of my Resto Shaman Soulbinds. I should have mentioned at the start of the video as well that the new legendaries, or some of the new legendaries, were actually incorporated for some of the classes. Now keep in mind that for Resto Shaman, I did not see anything in terms of new legendaries. There was nothing here that usually shows up. They're going to be covenant specific. But for Resto Druid, as you can see from the video clip here, you had legendaries both for Necrolord and Ventier, which I was not able to use because I was Night Phase. So unless I'm missing something, the new legendary or covenant specific legendary testing is not really going to be that great until, again, most of the legendaries are there to test. Now, in terms of Tarragrue fight, there's an interesting mechanic that a lot of people kind of enjoyed because you get to use some of the animal powers from Torghast. Now, keep in mind, the animal powers are not class specific. You're not going to get something that's going to increase your, healing rain deals damage to people and stuff like that. You're not going to get that. You're going to get something like really generic, like you're immune to stuns and fears. And you might be like, okay, that's not really that great. But when you consider that the boss itself has a stun mechanic, being immune to stuns becomes kind of part of, hey, I can really help you to negate this by picking this covenant or picking this anima power. So from our testing, you could pick 4 powers by killing certain mobs. Now, the thing that really kinda could be really annoying is that those powers are going to be random, and there's a big list of powers that you can select. Certain powers increase your throughput by like 30% or something. So you really kind of want it, but at the same time, certain powers are going to be mechanic based. And you can re-roll. By going to these pillars and clicking on those and saying like, hey, I want to re-roll my powers, you're going to have this cast bar that's when it's going to finish, you can go back to the orbs and select new powers, and hopefully you're going to get good ones. So this kind of means that you might have these raids where like your Jimmy over there is like, hey, I didn't get my powers, let me re-roll again. Or Jane over there is going to be like, hey, I'm still re-rolling my powers, I'm not getting the ones that I need, can you wait another 20 minutes? And it's going to be one of those things where people, if people want to parse or something along those lines, it's going to be super annoying. So I know why Blizzard introduced the whole re-rolling, because it's going to be really bad for people who were unlucky, but at the same time, this might be a huge time waster. At the same time, I also see the potential, the fun in getting these anima powers in raid. So I'm kind of split on this. In terms of the boss itself, the basic mechanics is you're going to have to dispel people. Master Spell is going to be strong here. There's going to be intermission phase where you need to go on these like light phases, light areas in order to prevent getting one shot. This was extremely fun because one of our Guardian Druids had a power that kind of knocks people away from him or her. So during this phase, when you have to go to this safe area, you would get constantly knocked. So I can imagine if more people pick up this anima power, this is gonna be some hilarious things happening. So this is why I think this boss was interesting. Again, we didn't get to test this fully because we only had like a 5 or 6 people group. So I want to go straight to Resto Shaman. So again, in terms of fun, keep in mind, none of the things they select here means it's going to be the best. There's still like months and months before there's going to be a lot of testing here. But in terms of fun, I honestly felt it Emny. And I felt that Pustule Eruption, which sounds disgusting if you think about this. Fleshcard covers you in 3 pustules per 1 second. So you're actually going to get a total of 9 pustules. If you channel it fully. Taking damage or being healed. Now the damage portion was a bit iffy, but the healing portion was really nice to proc it. Pops a pustule, dealing a certain amount of damage to nearby enemies and healing nearby allies for a certain amount between them. And the gameplay for this, I felt was really cool because all of a sudden, let's say here, we have a raid group and let's assume there's going to be 20 people here and there's going to be a lot of raid damage happening. So you're going to use your Fleshcraft as a cooldown, basically. You're going to pop your Fleshcraft, you're going to channel it to full, and you're going to get a total of 9 pustules, as you can see it here. And all you need to do is heal yourself. So you can actually pop a Riptide, and I've tried this out before. You pop a Riptide, and now every time it's going to heal, look at this, you're kind of like firing out healing. You're kind of doing this like healing abilities right now, and you can see it here. Pustule Eruption, and it's happening. You don't have to do anything, you just have to heal yourself with Riptide. And this is going to do a lot of, or a decent amount of AoE healing. And you're still going to have 1 pustule left, which you can pop a Riptide and then proc it. So generally speaking, a really kind of interesting, probably the biggest playstyle change that I've seen from testing Resto Druid and testing a Resto Shaman. In terms of how it's going to change your Fleshcraft usage. And I thought it was really interesting. I don't have hard numbers or based on logs how much healing it was doing, but I think it was doing a pretty decent amount for a last trait in terms of Soulbinds. In terms of other things, honestly, I was kind of testing out. Again, there was a lot of things with Bonesmith that I could have tested, but I kind of wanted to show or talk about Marilet. In terms of Marilet, Primordial Wave summons Kevin's Oozling. I call it the Oozling Kevin because it's just appropriate to fight alongside for you. So you spawn Kevin. His attacks cause your enemies to take 2% additional damage from you. And he periodically grants your allies an Absorb Shield. Now, the Absorb Shield, I'm not sure how many people are considered allies. Is it gonna kind of absorb everyone? So, I didn't get to test it out, but I just wanted to showcase it in the video because I think it looks cool. And it's one of the Soulbinds that is frequently used in Mythic Plus as well. So if I use Primordial Wave, you can see that Kevin is spawned. You can see Kevin right now actually looks completely scuffed. And he basically deals damage to the mob and puts a debuff that increases my damage taken. Damage taken from mad heals increased by 2%. And it also gives you a shield, but the shield is kind of hard to see, and I'm not sure how good the shield is going to be. But generally speaking, that's another thing the Necrolords are going to get. Besides that, you're also going to have Bonesmiths. When you damage an enemy that's below 35% HP, 3% of damage done is repeated over 5 seconds. Healing an ally grants them an ability to have their damage repeated this way at 30% effectiveness for 5 seconds. This is something that is way harder to test in longs, and will require a lot more testing in order to see its true potential. So this was my build for Resto Shaman. In terms of legendaries, again, we didn't get to do it, but I do feel Resto Shaman from the two fights that I've seen, there is still a lot of utility for Resto Shamans, and I both enjoyed my Resto Shaman, I both enjoyed my Resto Druid. I'm looking forward to testing out other Soulbinds. Let me know, guys, what other healers I should test next, and I'll see you in my next guide.